This was a great day because honestly when they called, and so NCAA usually calls you to let you know that you received the grant. They don't just send like an email, they make it a little bit more festive, I guess. So when they called, honestly, like I kind of almost like lost my voice in the beginning because in our field we don't get so many opportunities to apply for grant, and that is one of those opportunities. I didn't think we would be applying this year, but from conversations with colleagues, decided to end up applying, and as a result of us applying, we got the grant. So that was a little bit unexpected, and obviously that was a great day. The focus of this research project is to understand how athletes student athletes perceive and manage different pressures and feedback that is related to social media. Because if we look at the significance of social media in today's college athletics and for branding of student athletes, it's huge. Now that athletes can monetize their name, image, and likeness or personal brand, social media is the space where over 60 to 70% of those activities are happening. So this is a huge opportunity for student athletes, but at the same time we know that for anyone, but especially for someone who is trying to build a brand as a public persona, there are just so many risks and negative effects that are coming from social media. That includes authenticity tensions, when we feel like we want to be someone who is going to be attractive to our audience and other people, but at the same time we kind of are expected to be ourselves, to engage our audience. We want to post some things to express ourselves, but we also have to be cautious and careful with what we communicate about ourselves. There is so much harassment and negative feedback happening on social media, especially targeting minorities and women athletes population. And so this is something that definitely needs to be addressed through research. And this was the idea of our application. We proposed a two-study design, so a mixed study approach, where in the first study we would conduct an extensive qualitative exploration, exploring student athletes' decision-making in how they perceive and handle feedback and pressures coming from social media, and then building on findings from study 1, as well as a thorough literature review. In study 2, we would design an intervention that would focus on educating student athletes on how to manage social media-induced pressures and feedback, what's the healthy approaches to branding yourself on social media and staying resilient through this process. Overall, the big theme of our project, we actually titled it Online Resilience, kind of showing that this is what we want to foster among student athletes, and I guess this kind of sums up overall the purpose of the project for us. Two goals that we have. The first goal is probably a little bit research-oriented. Again, study 1 will be a very extensive qualitative exploration. A lot of prior research on student athletes and social media usage in general has focused on how people perceive social media-related pressures, how they perceive feedback coming from social media. We want to dive, building on those findings, we want to dive a little bit deeper and really distill that decision-making process that happens there. Like, what are the factors that shape how individuals perceive and manage that social media feedback? So that will be a little bit more theoretically oriented work, but will provide the necessary background for the second work. And the second work, I think, will, I'm coming from sport management, but I do think the second work will be a little bit more almost like on the sports psychology side, where we will focus on developing an educational intervention. And I think this is one of the biggest interest for NCAA with this grant. And so in this intervention, we will focus on educating student athletes on how to best manage those pressures and feedback, how to stay away from controversies on social media. And I think this is something that is usually, like this type of proposals is usually found of bigger value for NCAA for this grant programming, because the name of the grant is Innovations in Research and Practice, and they are specifically interested in seeing development of different practically oriented programs that would help improve student athletes' well-being and mental health and their experience in the programs. And this is why we have kind of like this two-part project addressing both the research side and the practical side. And of course, very excited that NIL funded this topic, for us to be able to work on it, but also hopefully, we really believe in the impact that it can produce, so hoping that we can accomplish that. So definitely planning out how we will go about data collection as a part of the second stage of our study, where we design an intervention. We will work with a company to actually design a mobile app, which will teach student athletes in a very interactive way on those techniques and methods for managing pressures related to social media. And so there will be quite a bit of extensive work going on behind the scenes to just getting that app set up and working with the company to make sure that it looks the way that we want to look. And as academics, app development is not something that we necessarily always work on, so that will be definitely a new territory for us to explore, and something that will take some time and some resources from us, so we definitely have to make sure that we prioritize that and dedicate enough attention to that. As a former student athlete, I'm very passionate about all topics that help address student athletes' professional development and personal development, and especially a project like this that addresses real issues that are happening. So I think it's very important, and I think that also kind of goes hand in hand with what I teach in the classroom as well. With me being an instructor for name, image, and likeness course, I do get to interact with a lot of student athletes in my classes, and I have to think about how to design materials that are going to be applicable and useful to them personally and professionally. And so I think, in this space, research will really go hand in hand with what we teach, because that will help us better understand the materials, how we want to design materials for the classroom, how we want to translate our findings into what we teach in the classroom. And again, social media playing such a big role in the NIL space and in general in personal branding. I think addressing the questions of how to stay safe on social media, how to be mentally resilient despite all the challenges that are present out there, I think all of that is very important to address.